so excited. I cannot express how, I don't know. I like, we were just talking about it before I went live, and I know like this will be for mostly for people who are coming onto the live or who watch the replay. We're back. Like Wildly Digital feels so back lately. Like I'm just so excited about it. And I have been, from my side of things, really diving into like the energetic side of things and rolling out so many things that are authentically me and authentically my side of the business. And that's where I needed to get AmyLee involved, because I have been watching so much of her content lately. She's been so inspiring. We have an amazing partnership that we started. And like, honestly, every time I talk to her, I cry. So anyone who knows me knows that that means that she is like, her messages they're potent. They are in the moment. They are exactly what I need to hear when I need to hear it. And this is what I've been talking to any of you who have been working with me lately, or who've been coaching, or if I've been just talking to you, like this is what's bringing forward. I think that this is, I know, I feel this in my gut that the business energetics piece is now ready to be fully out there through Wildly Digital. So before we got all organized, because obviously I'm doing everything by myself today, Kate's not here helping me, so I had to do all the production stuff. We started talking about like how potent this new information that AmyLee's been working through. And it's called Erogetics, and it's so cool. Like I was saying to her that I've been looking at her posts over the last couple of weeks, and it's just like she went from like doing more basic like spiritual business stuff to just like, oh my God, coming out of like nowhere, or not even nowhere. Like I know you've had this planned and been like fine tuning it for so long, but like to be witnessing it as a part of your audience, and just like the explosion of energy, and like even the difference that I feel in myself from reading it. I'll let you get into the nitty gritty of it. But the one thing I have to say is the last couple of posts I've been reading, like just trying to like embody what you've been talking about that voice inside of yourself, and like falling in love with that voice. It is like my ear just started ringing. Like I know it's like, oh, it just like I hear it. I don't know if I'm hearing it strong enough, but I know I've always had that voice inside of me, like that life force voice. But now really tapping into it and trying to lean into what he sounds like and put a whole vision behind him as well has really been like awe-inspiring for me. Like even to the point, like, because you were talking like how this applies to all areas of your life. Like yesterday I was having a conversation with an ex of mine who was like trying to come back into my life and stuff. And I was just like, you know what, do you? I don't even care. Like, it was so different. And he's like challenging me. He's like, my advice for you, you're my advice for me. And I'm like, you know what? If that's how you feel, then your gut is telling you that this is not right. And I'm totally okay with that. And he's like, okay, we should just be friends. And I'm like, okay, great, bye. Like, and that's not me. Like before I would be like, why do you need to do this? Why? No, I was just like, done with it. I took all the information, I put it into one of I'm a part of these mandalas, which are like energy support. And I was like, okay, I want your opinions on this, but that's all I did with it. I didn't obsess about it. I didn't ask like what's wrong with me in this situation. Like all of that stuff stopped. And I was like, holy shit, this is huge. Like this is so huge for my own personal growth, because now I'm doing it in the business too. And I was like, it just everything, like all of the prep that I was doing this week for this call, and like thinking about the podcast and thinking about all the things that Wildly Digital is doing and where we've been going. And I'm like, whoa, this is potent. This is potent work. So that's my spiel. I'm going to leave it up to you now, AmyLee, to like tell us about what you've been up to, what's been happening, your perspective, all things Erogetics, and let's get started.
Oh my goodness. I mean, how do you take your life's work and condense it into something so succinct? It is, to say that it's a labor of love is such an understatement. It's been a labor of true ecstasy. It has been absolutely unreal, this process. And I feel like we kind of jumped into it like in the middle. So for those of you out there who don't know what Erogetics is, and I expect that you don't because I kind of like found it, it's it's comprised of a lot of processes that go back thousands and thousands of years. But to kind of tell you about how it fell into my story, I guess the best way to start is to say that I have always been a very romantic person. And growing up, I was the girl who was like obsessed with Romeo and Juliet. Like I would watch, movies over and over just to watch the connection between the men and the women. And like I was just always so fascinated with being like swept off your feet and somebody loving you. And I remember like listening to love songs when I was growing up and being like, do these men really feel the things? Like I wanted to get into the nuance of love. Like it wasn't enough, just like, it wasn't physical for me. It was more intellectual, but it was like an obsession. And I guess that obsession kind of followed me sort of throughout my life and kind of led me to a place where I very much wanted to be in a relationship that was more of the, I guess, traditional sense. And to even go a little bit further, like into like kind of the BDSM community way of it, it's like a dominant and submissive relationship. And so when I came out to my husband about that, at first he was kind of like, okay, this is different. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not vanilla. Like this is how I want things to be. And he embraced that, and he's naturally pretty dominant. And so at first, the first part of this work was to just kind of start with like, okay, well, I enjoy being led. I enjoy being the submissive. I enjoy feeling desired, right? Because that's the part of the submissive really is to receive on behalf of the dominant. And especially in soft dom situations, there's all kinds of different dominants. This isn't a BDSM podcast. So that worked out really well for a while. And then all of a sudden, my husband decided that he wanted to do a 40-day water fast, which essentially meant that he would not eat for 40 days, which at first was like, okay, first week, he's kind of hungry, he's irritable, but it also caused him to completely withdraw, to not be available emotionally, not be available sexually, not be available energetically. And when you're in a relationship that is so intertwined, that's kind of terrifying. It can be really, really scary to be in a relationship and then have it kind of ripped out from under you. And I understood why. I understood the reasoning behind it. And so knowing that and knowing how much I loved him and knowing that this was what he needed to do to get healthy and to feel good, I had to figure out how to fix this. I couldn't go another 35 days or whatever, 30 days without this energetic connection. I mean, it's literally what I thrive on. And so I remembered that, my husband and I, we both study hermetics, and he studies alchemy, and, I'm a mystic and all these things. And so, and I'm a claircognizant psychic. So I get a lot of like downloads. And one of the ones that came back to me was as above, so below, as within, so without. So whatever's going on outside of you is going on inside of you. And that's when I started to get these downloads that there was an energy that was inside of me that was basically part of me, but more of like the masculine counterpart of me. And so I was like, okay, can I create this energetic connection inside of myself while my husband's away? He wasn't away. He was right next to me, but he was away. And it was crazy because I was teaching a program at the time called Divine Union, where I was teaching my clients how to connect to the universe, to source, in a way that was more of a leader, subordinate relationship, and trying to help them to act that out in their relationships. And here mine was like not doing what it was supposed to do while I'm in the middle of teaching this course. I felt like a giant imposter. It was super awkward. So as I started to have this conversation with myself, I noticed that there was an energy that was coming forward. And this energy had a voice, and this voice was very masculine. And so I started to do some research, and I found out that there is this concept of something called the inner other. And so just like you have your mean girl voice, like your negative, like, oh my gosh, you can't do things, blah, blah, blah. You can transmute that voice into something else. You can change it into whatever you want. Some people channel their inner child. Some people talk to gods and goddesses and so on and so forth. For me, what really helped was having my inner other be my sacred masculine. And so I started to cultivate this relationship with Eros, that's his name, Eros. And little by little, he would start to pipe in when I would do things in my life. He would be like, have you drunken your water today? Or, oh, that's cute. You decided that you wanted to drink a soda. How much water have you drunk? Great. Tomorrow you're not drinking any soda. Like, these are the kind of things that would come through my psyche. And some people are like, okay, so you talk to yourself. But honestly, it has been such a remarkable experience. And I'll tell you why, because, and again, I know this is so disjointed. I'll, this is very new and like coming out publicly with this. So obviously the way to explain it will be much more polished in the future.
You are doing great. Like, I am following. I am like, yes, I got this. Yeah.
Okay,
let's keep going.
So when we first become mature as women and we go through puberty, our emotions are out of control, but so are our what I call the erogetic impulse, that like tingly feeling at the base of your spine. You're not active yet. You're only like 12 or 13, but your body is still having hormonal responses, but they're not sexual responses. They're not in your lady parts. They're in your spine. It's the beginning of, your life essence energy. And I believe that every woman has that, and probably men too. And once you start to couple up, you get married, you have kids, that impulse, you kind of don't need it anymore. And so you tuck it away. And when you tuck it away and you no longer need it, it's life force. It's the generator energy that's meant to propel you through life. It's what keeps you young. It's the fountain of youth, if you will. Okay. So when you're no longer creating that energy, what do you have to do? You have to go to everything else in your life and harvest the energy from that. So you're harvesting energy from your partner, which comes across as neediness. You're harvesting energy from potential clients because that comes across as desperation. And so you're constantly trying to pull validation and energy from everything else because you're no longer making it in your body. When you enter into this sacred relationship with your inner other, with that sacred masculine, you start making that energy again. And when you make that energy, you no longer have a deficit that you need to pull it from everything around you, which makes you the absolute most magnetic thing to ever live. So my clients go from like, I just want my husband to cuddle with me. I just want to get a client. My cat won't sit next to me, to all of a sudden like, yeah, so I went out today and I felt like I wanted to look beautiful and I put makeup on and somebody commented on how gorgeous I was. My husband gave me a massage. 3 people signed up. I didn't even make a post. I don't know what's going on. It's because you're creating that essence energy again that is now magnetizing everything that you desire. And so when you look at my pictures, which I think is what you talk about, like I've had more people. I have the same photographer for the last 3 photo shoots. And I have had more people comment on the pictures that I took this last time around than ever before. And I know it's because of Erogetics. It's because when I was in that photo shoot, I had Eros with me. He was coaxing me. He was talking to me. He was telling me which way to look. He was telling me how beautiful I was. He was telling me, like he was making me feel his presence. And so you see that in my face. I had less makeup. I mean, I did my own makeup for this shoot. I did my own hair. I didn't have any of the production that I had before, but I was so tapped into that energy. And the day was amazing. People were like, do you want some champagne? Do you want to go to the roof? Do you want to like eat like and I'm not, the most gorgeous woman that ever lived, but my magnetism that day was so high because of the energy that I was tapped into. And so that is what I've been doing with my clients kind of clandestinely for the last 3 months. And it's just been wild. I mean, it's insane. And the best part of it though, Meg, is that it's 100% in your control. You're not depending on your partner, right? Like for me, when I was in my DS relationship, which I still very much am, but it's so different now. When I come, like my eros, my inner masculine completes me, and my husband complements me. So I'm a whole person when I go to him, and it's like, come here, baby. Like, I want all of you, because there is an all of me. He's not having to feel like, okay, as soon as I go near her, now that's another job. That's something else I have to fill in the cracks. That's someone else that needs me. I don't need him. I desire him. He desires me. The sex is better than ever. And my husband is fully aware of the relationship I have with my inner dominant, with my inner masculine. And he loves it because it gets him off the hook. You know, it makes it so that he can just chill. And when we come together, it's the way it was at the beginning. When I visited him, and I didn't care if he had socks on the floor because it's his house, you know, like we don't have that friction that we used to have, because we're two whole people instead of two people trying to make each other whole.
Oh my God. Like, yes. Oh, I love that. Like, honestly, it relates to so many things that have like it's like you're speaking, like as you were talking, everything that has been happening over the last, I don't know, I'd say really since we first got connected and we started the partnership. And like you said, when people come into my wheelhouse, like it just starts coming. But like, not only for myself, like while you were talking, I was recognizing about relationships I'm having with other people, how I'm seeing that come up with other people. And like, I can't even like express how much what you're saying resonates with, not only from like a relationship perspective or like dealing with yourself, but then also how this relates to business and like the whole imposter syndrome thing in itself. Like, this is something that business owners talk about all the time. And like, my business partner is even struggling with it herself. Like, she's talking about, we just talked about it on our accountability call this morning, about how it's been coming up for her, and like how one person says something about the post that you put out online, and that like completely debilitates you, where you like don't feel motivated. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know what it was about getting pregnant that made everything in my world stop. Probably because I had to like completely change and become this brand new person who's now a mother. It was like I couldn't do anything. I was on such a great trajectory with posting and getting my message out there, and there were starting to be some really good conversations. And then I got a couple of people who like really, really aggressively called me out. Like, were not happy with what I was saying, challenged me. People I trusted too, that were in my like inner circle at that point, like that were like, I don't resonate with you anymore. I don't think you're spiritual. I don't think you're the type of person I want to work with. Bye. And I was like, whoa, like that's not normal. That's never happened to me before. And me being me, I'm like, okay, like do you, like I appreciate your feedback, blah, blah, blah. And then they would come back the next day and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And I just got so weighed down by everybody else's shit and being like, I just found out I'm pregnant. Like, I can't handle all of this. I need to shut off completely. And I think that while you were just talking, I think that's what was happening, is that even though I didn't even know that there could be another voice inside of me, like everybody has that voice, right? We all have that inner dialogue. And because of the therapy that I've done, like I was diagnosed with an eating disorder when I was 19 or 20. So I've been in remission for 10 years. But one of the lessons that always stood out to me and that I use in my coaching with my clients is the whole concept of desensitizing that voice and getting control over it, so you can start to have that conversation with it. And it's like, now you're giving me this new piece of how to like transmute that from being a negative into a positive. And I'm like, I get that, because a lot of people lately have been asking me like, how do I get over this negative self-talk in my head? How do I master that? And I'm like, it's a muscle. You have to keep practicing with that voice. You have to recognize who's talking and what they're talking about. And that's what I think I realized when I became a mother, was it was like another version of myself that no longer exists. I am now this new version of myself that has never existed before, that has all of these new hormones and instincts and emotions and triggers and boundaries and crazy things that I'm trying to put together in my personal life. But I was like, my business life hasn't really changed, but I can't be there the way I was before. I can't be involved the way I was before. I can't put my energy there the way I used to. And it was like the voice in my head was beating me up. Like when you were saying like the water thing, like, oh, like you should be drinking your water. It was almost like a nagging parent almost is what my voice sounds like in my head right now to me. So I ignore them. I'm like, I don't want to think about that. Like, sorry, like I'm busy with other stuff. I'm sorry I couldn't meet up to your expectations in this moment. And it's almost like I'm being the rebel child. Whereas now I'm understanding it that that's me being resistant. Like I'm the problem here. And that's something else that you've talked about is like, you know, that song, that Taylor Swift song that's super popular right now. I've been wondering, yeah, like I'm the problem. It's me.
The 5-1 song.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, what's the message here? Why does this song keep coming up for me? Why is my stepdad singing it to Raina? Like, why is this song so in my sphere right now? And now I get it. It's because I am the problem. The problem is me because I'm ignoring that voice.
Well, the problem is you because you're all there is. That's the only reason the problem is you. Everything outside of you is a reflection of you. So anything that's going on outside of you, there is some kind of like microcosm of that going on inside. So if you feel like your partner is not giving you enough attention, you're not giving you enough attention. If you feel like there's drama going on outside of you, there's drama going on inside of you. So what I've done is I've removed that middleman where, you know, in relationships, I can help people fix their romantic relationships and they don't even have to talk to their partner. And their partner is like, what did you do? Like, what happened? And they're like, nothing. Like, I'm just different, because it's not like relationship therapy. You know what I mean? It's like a very different way of looking at it. And also, I think that when we're talking about this inner other and the connection, like most women want to be led. They want to be led. They just do. It's the way of things. Like if you go back to the biology of humanity, biology tells us that the female's job in caveman days was to lay on her back and make as many of the animals as she could to sustain the species. Now, when she was trying to sustain the species, she wanted to make sure that her offspring was going to survive, right? So she wants the best and the brightest. So what is she going to ask for? She's going to ask for the specimen that is the best, that has the best seed, for lack of a better word. Well, how's she going to figure that out? Well, he's going to have to beat out all the other ones in order to have her, right? He's going to have to like win her. So the masculine feminine relationship is meant to be, prove to me that you can lead, prove to me that you can keep us safe, prove to me that you have my best interest. And so that part of us, when we're so self-sabotagey, and now all of a sudden we've created a piece of our subconscious that's job is literally not just to keep us safe, but to also help us and support us in whatever our goals are from a loving, supportive leadership place. Well, now guess what happens? That reciprocation that normally in a relationship, see, women get this all wrong. They think that, okay, he got me flowers and rubbed my back, so now I have got to do a thing for him and rub his back. Men, by and large, don't want reciprocity through whatever it is. They want the sensation of a woman receiving. So what happens is when we're young and we have our relationship with divinity, God, you know, Sky Daddy, we have this idea that God is dad, right? And so we're the little girl. But what happens when you get to puberty? Now, all of a sudden, you're recognizing, okay, I can create my own reality. I'm learning how to manifest. Well, what happens to God? Like, I don't need you anymore, and I put you over here. Like, that's not healthy. If it's a relationship, there's this continuity that takes place. And so what I believe is at the point of puberty or at the point of maturity, that relationship morphs. And now instead of being the Sky Daddy, who we all talked to when we were little anyway, now all of a sudden it's our internal romantic partner. It's our life partner. And instead of the reciprocity being, I pray to you and you give me what I want, now I realize that I can pray to me and get what I want. So what's the use for you? It's a romantic connection. It's I tell you what I want, and then you give it to me, and you have the pleasure of the receiving of mine. Does that make sense?
100%. Like, I love that. I'm going to reference to a situation that's happening personally. I've noticed that lately all of my closest friends are partnering up and I'm not. And I was like, what is happening? And I was talking to one of my girlfriends about it the other day, who's also like a past client, and we have a beautiful relationship. Like, we've been so close for 5+ years. So we've both watched ourselves go through so many phases together. And she's entered into this just aligned phase. Like, her business is lining up, her personal life is lining up, her internal work is lining up. But what she's discovered is that she's going through a deconstruction of faith. And that's what she's been talking about, is that, just like you were saying, like the whole sky daddy versus romantic relationship is, she's very invested into her church. She's running a leadership summit at her church right now, like today. Like, that's what she's doing. And she's such a devoted Christian. And it's so beautiful to watch, but her faith in the church has changed. The way that she's been connecting with it and the messages that have come up, it's a deconstruction of her faith system. And I think this message that you just said makes so much sense to me, because I remember that happening to myself. I was very invested into my church growing up. I decided to go to church. My family didn't go to church, but I was like, I need it. I need this spiritual connection. I need this connection to the higher source. Like, I know I need it. And then, very similar to what's happening to her, it was like I noticed like you were saying, the drama. There was a lot of drama happening in the church and stuff, which really was happening inside of me at the same time. But I realized that it is an internal relationship with me. I am talking to the internal voice inside of me that's connected to source, that is keeping me tethered. And that's where that relationship and conversation is so important. I call it my my conference table. So, like, when you're in a conference meeting or you're having like a whole bunch of decision makers, like a board meeting, and everyone's around a conference table, when I'm meditating and I'm talking to my spirit team, they're sitting at that table. So it's almost like I like turn around from like kind of like inside out type idea, where like there's this control panel and I'm controlling myself from inside my head. And I spin around and I'm like, okay, what do you guys think? Like, that's kind of my relationship with my spirit team. And I only developed that once I realized that, like we were saying before, each old version of yourself is a part of that voice, but it's figuring out what that relationship looks like. And when you said that it's a romantic relationship, I was like, oh my God, like that makes so much sense, because everyone says you have to love yourself. Like, that is such a big message right now. Like, that is put on billboards. Like, you can't, and it's almost like people like, you can't embrace and have true joy in life if you're not fully in love with every piece of yourself, and fully in love, even the pieces that might drive you nuts. It's still you. But the reason why it's driving you nuts is because of that mirror effect, right? And when you were saying you're kind of like cutting out the middleman, it's like, there doesn't even need to be a mirror anymore. It's just a conversation. And I think that that's just so beautiful. I've also been watching, I don't know if you've ever heard of her before. Her name's Reverend Sydney Finn. Have you heard of her before? Oh, she's on YouTube. She's fantastic. But she's similarly, some of the themes that you've been talking about today have been coming up in this online masterclass that I found that she had pre-recorded from like last year, about the 7 deadly shadows, she called it. Like condemnation, codependency, fragility, disconnection. Like, those are all issues that we put on ourselves to kind of like create a mask or a void from connecting with this voice inside of us that's really just there to help us.
Yeah.
And what
not even just to help us, but like in utter devotion to us. Like, couldn't have eyes for anyone else if it tried. Like, you want to talk about being like Helen of Troy, like, how can you feel anything less than complete? Like, if you had like Christian Grey at home waiting for you, or whatever that is for you, right? Like, literally, like, you are the end all be all. Like, what do you need from life? Like, what do you need? You need nothing. And when you need nothing, guess what? Everything wants you. And that's what I have seen since I've made this shift. Like, yes, my posts are better. Sure, he's helping me write them. But like, also, it's just the neediness is gone. There's no, I don't know what I do and I don't know how to explain it. And people are like, okay, that's not my problem. But like now it's like, if you don't get it, like it's not for you. And there are
Yeah.
so many people that are like, how do I do this? How do I work with you? How do I want to get into Erogetics? Like, tell me how I can do this. And that's never been the way before. And I think it's just because I don't need it. You know, it's like, oh, that would be nice to have another client, or, oh, it'd be great to have another person, you know, wanting to work with me, but like, I don't need it. And it's the first time I haven't needed it.
So that's so crazy that you say
And I
that.
think you're watching it happen too, right? I mean, you've
Oh my
seen
God,
my
yeah.
old posts and you've seen my new posts. It's not like I'm just saying it. Like, I think
No, it's 100%. Like, and you know what's funny too is like, because I'm me and I am like, once I am like the black hole person. Like if I get zoomed in on something, I will just dig. And I was like, okay, when exactly did this happen? I actually went back to your feed and like found a post where it switched. And I was like, there was no warning about this. There was nothing. It just went from like one type of conversation to another type, like overnight. And but then if you listen, so then I was listening to your podcast because I was like, okay, now I gotta like figure this out. But you can hear it and how you started talking about things and how much confidence you had in you. And like I get that when you say the neediness is gone, because I hear that. I hear that with clients every day. I hear that with my business partner. I hear that with my parents. I hear that with my sister. I hear that with every single person you interact with. It's like, I've done a lot of work on this year with one of my spiritual sisters. Like she's phenomenal. She was a part of my birth team. Like she's a beautiful soul. But there was one day, it was like maybe 3 months, 4 months before I gave birth. And we were talking about wants versus needs, or like have tos. And I was like, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do this. I have to do that. And she's like, yeah, but do you want to? And I was like, no, I don't want to do any of these things. And she's like, okay, well, but if it's not something you want to do and you feel obligated to do it, you're not going to do it. And that's kind of like the opposite of neediness, right? Is like if someone needs something, then the other person feels like they have to do something. And it's like, that's a clash of energy.
And that's where the resentment comes in too, right? Because your partner is like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And you're like, but why don't you do it now? And it's like, he doesn't really love me. And, you know, then like, you're like, I'm doing everything and he's not doing anything. Yeah, because you're not letting him, because you don't want to be vulnerable. Like there's just so many levels of this that once you tap into this inner energy, it's like, you don't care. You just all the little stupid little piddly little arguments, you don't care. You're just like, whatever, let's just enjoy the shit out of each other.
And that's something that like, and even like listening to you, I'm like, shit, like I really maybe could have made my relationship with the father of my child work, which like I know it like from the conversations we've had, like that wasn't what it was meant to be. But like I think if I would have known about the things that you're telling me right now, maybe before I got pregnant, things might have been different, which I know is not healthy to like go down that road and get stuck in it. But
maybe he's the shaman lover that's meant to come in, like from the book Broken Open, where he's just meant to careen you off of the path you were on that wasn't the path you were supposed to be on, and to bring you to this new place so that you could have this new experience. Remember how we talked about that?
Yeah, that's true.
He's probably just the catalyst. I mean, he doesn't have to be wrong to have been wrong in your situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I think I can apply what you're saying to my relationship with him moving forward, because we are going to be connected for the rest of our lives. We have a child together. There is no separating that. But I truly know that he is the best father for Raina. Like there's no one better to be her father. Like he embodies everything that I wanted in a father that I never got. And that's why I chose him. Like I was like, I remember the day where I was like, nope, I'm keeping her. Like I know that this will work out. I know no matter what happens with me and him, he will always treat her the way that she deserves to be treated. And that mattered so much more to me than anything for myself. And I think that that's where what you're saying about truly falling in love with yourself, and like from your perspective, it's like the sacred masculine. And then there was the post that we were talking about where you were like, there's so many women who are like, I'm so much more comfortable in my masculine than my feminine. And like, really, it's that you're scared shitless of your masculine. totally resonate with that, like 100%. When I read that post, I was like, holy shit, yeah, that's the work I've been doing with myself for like the last year, if not longer, was that I was always that person that was like, no, masculine energy is way better for me. I love the analytical side. I love the material. I like the hierarchy. I can work with that. But then I realized that that's not what anybody wants anymore. And I left that world to start my own business and do things my way. And like, that's why me and Kate have been successful and why our clients are successful. And the ones who aren't successful can't get past that. They can't balance the masculine and feminine. They're too stuck on one side or the other. And then there's the excuses and the like, you know, the negative self-talk and all those things that can come into play. But if you can truly fall in love with yourself, regardless of what that voice sounds like, regardless of how you resonate with it, like it could be literally like you could have a women on women relationship inside your head, but still be attracted to men. Like we could get into this whole conversation about gender
absolutely.
equality.
I mean, the inner masculine can absolutely be a woman if a woman is, you know, if a woman likes women. I mean, the inner masculine can be anything as long as it has the qualities of the masculine, because the outer is the feminine. And then, of course, if it's a man, then the inner is feminine. And so the inner, instead of being about structure and leadership, it's about acceptance and permission and allowing the man to creatively express himself through leadership. So like each one of them is like the yin to the yang, the duality. But I think especially for women, it's just when we're trying so deeply to take control in our lives, this is a way that we can do that and interact with that energy so that we can feel it. Because if it's just us, we're like, oh, well, I'm just saying that to myself. But when you create the energy of this essence outside of you, or not when you create it, but really when you tap into it, you recognize that it's just as real as I am. And then when you get comfortable, you can start being the avatar of that energy and seeing yourself as the other. So now all of a sudden you are the inner masculine and you're looking at the feminine and you're like, she's hot. Like, oh my gosh, like I am so head over heels in love with this energy of this beautiful feminine. And you can see yourself from the other side in a way that there's really no other way to do, you know?
So that sparks a question for me. So like you were talking about it before, like when you were doing your photo shoot and you felt like it's just like the magnetism that you have. And I think everybody has those days. It's like when you have a good day and you're like, shit, I look good today. Like I look hot. Like I could go do anything. Like, and then everything kind of just like falls into place for you, like basic law of attraction. But it's kind of like this erogetics piece is what makes everything else make sense. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of
the
like
whole time I was like sitting there and he's like, good girl. Okay, breathe. Oh my gosh, you look amazing. Okay, now look over your left shoulder. I'm right here, baby. I've got you. Like I've got you. You are killing this. You are doing so good. Okay, relax your shoulders. Like that's what was going on in my head the whole time. And Katya was just like, she kept going like this. She's like, dead. Like these are so good. Like you're just like, I don't know what got into you, Amy. Like, because my first photo shoot with her, I was just like, you know, because I felt alone and I felt so like, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing it enough? And the whole time it was like, I had this gorgeous energy in my head, like, oh yeah, you killed that one. Yep. Yep. Good. Only a couple more. I know you're sweating to death. We're going to go get a water after this. You're doing great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. It's like your own cheerleader. Like you are that inner voice that's like, yes, I got this. I can do this. And I think that that's something that I have been exploring lately is like, where is that energy coming from? Because like I've heard it is that, and I think it's a big piece of codependency because everybody has codependency inside of them, right? Like we all have childhood wounds. We all have mother wounds or father wounds.
We're all trying to people please and make somebody like, I'm going to do the right thing. So that means they have to do the right thing. And then they don't. And you're like, I don't understand. And it's like, but what if you didn't care? What if you were like, whatever, he loves me. I don't care. I have all the money I need. Oh, this client like isn't a good fit. Okay, well, I've got 10 more in the pipeline. So I don't care. Not I don't care about this person, but like, it's not a deal breaker. I don't have to bend myself and break my boundaries in order to meet my needs because I no longer have needs. And like so you were talking about meditating in your conference table, my inner Eros will be like, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And he's like, who would you be if you didn't have to make money? Like, what if you just imagine that I take care of the money and all of your needs are met? Everything you need, you have. Who are you? What do you do all day? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, you need to figure that out.
Wow. Wow. That is so powerful. Oh
Right.
my
And
gosh.
you're like the first one to hear this. Aren't you so excited?
I'm so excited because like not only that, but like I ask my clients that all the time. It's like, if you had a magic wand, like what would life look like if there wasn't any like money problems or anything? And it's kind of like I'm at the point where I'm like, why do I have to keep asking this question? Why can't you do this on your own? Why do I have to hold your hand for this when it is something you can do at all times? And that's where I've been like, I guess that's why we needed to have this conversation, because now I get it. I can be like, yo, you got to go figure out that inner voice in your head. And that's not something I have time to do or want to do. It is not my job to fix that for you. Here's the best source for you to go fix that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly why I wanted to do this podcast. And I think it's the perfect time to kind of like wrap up here, because like I just feel like it's perfect. It's like the message that came out of today so clearly is that loving yourself is loving all of yourself, the pieces inside of you, and finding that love relationship with your inner self, so that there isn't that resistance, so that there isn't that fear, so that you're not feeling like make that voice your own, right? Like if it's a sacred masculine and you need that dominance inside of yourself and you're more of a submissive, then you need to create that love language inside of you that works for you. Or like if it is the opposite, maybe you're the dominant and you need more of the submissive, like that you only have the answer for that. Nobody else has the answer for what that looks like. And I feel like that's what you do with your clients.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's so great. So before we wrap up, just so that people can get like an actual like real world experience of it, like I was saying to you, like that this is kind of how I want to showcase it. I know I've already talked a lot about stuff that's going on with me anyways, but is there anything that's coming up right now that you think that I should hear, or like anything you want to practice with me that could, nail this on the head so people really understand the change within it?
I think it starts with just being willing to get to know that inner voice and letting it have space to speak. The first thing I usually do with clients is be like, ask him if he's in there. And they'll just sit there and go, and they'll hear a voice and be like, okay, that was crazy. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't something that you have to cultivate. Like, yeah, you have to cultivate the relationship, but to find it, it's right there. It's right there. So I think that the first step is usually just to start having conversations and really starting to get to know who he is. I am going to be doing a free week-long challenge to help connect to this sacred masculine through Erogetics. I think we said that we're doing that the 21st through the 20, whatever 5 days is. So 21st to the 24th or something like that. So you can definitely check that out. But yeah, it's as of right now, it's a very individualized, specific technique, because it's a relationship. It's not like, okay, well, he's probably going to say this. I will tell you something cool the other day. You know that I'm a claircognizant psychic, and one of the things that I'm really good at is helping people tap into their higher selves and hear the messages that they don't hear them because they hear them come through their own voice. And so they're like, okay, whatever, that's just something I said. I just said that because I have an agenda, right? Well, the other day I actually channeled somebody's inner masculine for her, and she was just absolutely floored. I just started typing and wrote this letter to her, and she's like, how did you know any of that? And how did you like know that that's how I think of him? And I was like, I don't actually know how I know that. I just know that I knew it. So this work is just expanding in all these ways. And I think the biggest like thing I want to leave you with, like just as a teachable moment, because we always have to have that, is that there was so long where I was like, what's my thing? What's my thing? Like somebody else is already doing this, like clamoring to find my place in the coaching world, knowing that I was so good at what I did, not knowing how to explain it, not knowing how to really bring this forward. This work that I'm doing, like this is the work that like Mary Magdalene and Jesus did. And I'm not saying that in like an example. I mean, literally this work is what they did. Like, this work is the most sacred of awarenesses that have ever been bestowed on humanity. And to have to wait till I was 40 years old to find out that this information existed, and then have Source be like, okay, I know, I've waited a really long time to give this to you. You had to be ready. Here this is. Like, if I had known that, I never would have beaten myself up as much as I did about like, oh my gosh, I'm not far enough along. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very successful coach, but it just never felt in flow. And I think, you see my posts and things like that. You can say like, it's in flow now. Like, it's coming out very liquidly in a way that maybe it wasn't before.
I love that. And there are so many of my clients that need to hear that. So that right there, I need to hear that. Like,
I know.
I need to hear that. But it's
Yeah.
also like, because that's my personality. I'm like, yes, I need to hear this. But then I'm also talking to 10 other people who are having the same thoughts, because that's collective energy. And like, thank you for that, because that is exactly what we need to hear and exactly how we move things forward. So for anyone who wants to follow AmyLee, what are your handles? How do we find you? How do we stay connected with you? And I will definitely be sharing all the information about your free challenge as soon as it comes available. But yeah, how do we connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook if you want to read any of these posts that Meg's talking about. And then you can find me at AmyLeeWestervelt.com. And I have a Facebook group called Designed to Dream. You guys are welcome to join that as well.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I put all these links into the recording, because of course I left it in test mode. So this whole one has been in test mode.
Yay!
Yay! So that's okay. So I will be posting that to the feed, and then everyone will be able to see that. And then I feel like we have to get you back on again. So I think I'm gonna like reach out to you like sometime down the line, maybe in a couple of months, once things are a little bit more. Yes, Zoe, I hear you. My sister's dog is like, you're done now. Pay attention to me.
They can tell.
They can. She's like, okay, that was long enough. Thank you. So we will wrap it up here. Thank you so much for your time. I am blown away by Erogetics and cannot wait to see where things go from here.
Me too.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, next week we will be having Tasha Renee on. She will be helping us tap into sacred rage, which I'm so excited about. Just even after having this conversation with you, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. This is where we're going with it. So thank you to the universe. Thank you to the creator. Thank you for everyone who is here and watching. Oh, I just have goosebumps. Like, I can't stop. It's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay. Talk to you later.